Hello and welcome once again to yesterday's Airlines, and welcome also to Terminal 2, as I call it, the second room in my house dedicated to 400 scale models. And this room contains, as you can see from the flag, the fleets that relate to the United States of America and also Canada. I'm not going to be going through this room in detail in this video, but I've been doing some work on one of the cabinets and I wanted to just give a quick update on that. So I'll just produce a quick pan around the room. As you can see, there's a lot of models in here. America was one of the areas that really got me into collecting, or always had a real interest in the American aviation environment, especially in the regulated era and moving through to deregulation in the late 70s and 80s. And you can see that there are literally hundreds of models here related to America. It's probably, I'm not quite sure how much of my collection is here actually. It's probably less than half. In fact, I'm certain it is less than half. It's probably like, I don't know, just over a quarter, maybe, or around a third, something like that. Between a quarter and a third, I would say, of the fleet resides in this room. As you can see, there are multiple display cases. But we are going to be today, in this very short video, focusing on one of these display cases, namely this one here, which contains the big 5 regulated era US trunk airlines, plus the chosen instrument, Pan American World Airways. And I've been doing an update to this cabinet, so I just wanted to give a quick look around of the cabinet to go through the airlines in it. Before we get into looking inside the cabinet, just want to say thank you very much for watching, but please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and are enjoying the content. There's always loads more of this kind of thing turning up at yesterday's Airlines, not just here on the YouTube channel, but also on Instagram at yesterairlines, and obviously on the website yesterdaysairlines.com, which contains a huge amount of material, both about old classic airliners like these, but also about more modern releases and the history of aviation. So check out that site. But now let's get on and have a look inside the cabinet. So we'll start with a quick overview of the cabinet. The cabinet itself is glass and metal, and you wouldn't believe the amount of trouble that the removals men had getting this upstairs. In fact, they were really cursing me when I moved into this house and all the glass cabinets had to come upstairs. But I got this one secondhand. It's the sort that you can get in New Zealand reasonably easily as a shop display cabinet, but I got this one secondhand from a store in Newmarket, as I recall, that was showing up. And you can see that the airlines that are residing here, obviously we've got Pan Am at the top level. I'll look in these in more detail in a minute. And then down to the biggest trunk airlines: Transworld Airlines, American Airlines, Eastern Airlines, United Airlines, and then Northwest Airlines. And you might be surprised to not see Delta and Continental in here, but in the regulated era, Delta and Continental really were not that big. Neither was Braniff. And obviously then you've also got National and Western and North. These two are also quite small. So the big trunk airlines, as they were known as the Big Four, TWA, American, Eastern and United. But Northwest had a significant number of international routes, and obviously Pan Am itself, no domestic routes, but it was the chosen instrument of the United States for many, many years. So here's the Pan Am shelf, and it hasn't actually changed at all really recently. This is the only shelf in the cabinet that hasn't changed. You can see that it's got a big A3 backing board, and this is the primary part of the cabinet that I've modified. The other airlines used to have these as well, but they went between the shelves because they weren't designed for this glass cabinet. So now they've got their own new backing boards, and I've also made the glass panel at the back of the cabinet white for the lower shelves, which makes it all a bit brighter. But we'll start with Pan Am, and you can see here we've got a good selection of the fleet. Again, this is just a quick video, not going to go through this in a lot of detail. And there is a Pan Am fleet video around on the YouTube channel, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. Next up, of course, we've got Transworld Airlines. Starting with the Connies on the left, straight into the jets. You can see the new backing with the imagery actually fitting the shelf. I think this looks really nice, and quite pleased with the way this turned out. Moving across into the twin stripe and then into the globe era. Again, there's a TWA video on the YouTube channel. Just wanted to show the new look for the shelf with the backing boards. Next up, it's American Airlines. Again, new backing boards that fit the shelving much better. Moving across from the lightning bolts and the squashed eggs into the red, white and blue, which carried the airline through from the late 60s all the way into the 2000s. Moving on, we have Eastern Airlines, probably my favourite of the US trunk airlines, always in strife. Rickenbacker's airline, really impressive colour schemes through to the hockey stick into the 1980s. And we've got the silver new mark as well. Last but very much not least of the big four is United Airlines. United has had a lot of releases in 400 scale, and partly because there's been a lot of different United scheme variants. Lots of mainliners in different versions with different titles and the shield moved and so on and so forth. Stars and bars in the early 70s and then into the small titles, Saul Bass. There's been so much United though that it goes on to the next shelf, and we've got the large titles, Saul Bass, and then into the Battleship Grey. Again, new backing boards that fit to the shelves, and across into 1990s Northwest Airlines with the bowling shoe. And last up, we've got Northwest Orient in its classic guise. Not necessarily the largest of the trunk airlines, but had a significant international network as well as domestic, which put it some way above the smaller trunks like Delta and Continental. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this very quick look at the trunks cabinet, or at least the big trunk airlines cabinet with Pan Am. As I said a couple of times, most of these airlines have got fleet videos already on the channel here, so if you want to see in more detail the aircraft that make up these fleets, check those individual videos out. But I'm really pleased with the new backings that I've made here. Just some card to make the back of the glass cabinet white, and then these new display pieces that actually fit between the shelves. Just gives it a nice historical bent, and I'm really pleased with the way that's turned out. So, as you can see, not a lot of space to add new models, but there's a little bit here and there. I should also say that obviously, seeing as a lot of this is classic, most of these models are from era classics, but there's a good smattering of other brands, JC Wings, Gemini, Seattle Models, NG Models, so on and so forth. I think the only manufacturer that's not in this cabinet at some point is probably Phoenix. They almost never make American aircraft from this era. But anyway, that's it for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed looking very briefly at this big cabinet and like the changes that I've made to it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time from yesterday's Airlines.